Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here, and welcome back to the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Today, we have another episode of our innovation series, which I am super excited about because I do love talking about our innovation series. And today, we have Keiran James, who is a registered business valuer and the co-founder of businesssales.com.au, talking all about the issues that he had identified, he and his other business partners had identified in the business broking industry and the innovative ways that they had sought to deal with these issues. So in this episode, we really dig into some of the bugbears in the side of business brokers as they're driving deals forward, and how Keiran and the team at businesssales.com.au had sought to innovate to deal with some of those issues. Well, without further ado, here we go with Keiran. Keiran, welcome to the podcast. So good to have you on the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Joe.
Wonderful. Okay, so what we're talking about today is another fabulous edition of our innovation series, and we're talking to you today, Keiran, in your capacity of the new business sales.com.au, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the whole concept of businesssales.com.au came out of innovation, and so what I really want to drill into is what are the problems that you're seeing? What are the problems that you're trying to solve? And how did you go about coming up with that solution? And there were heaps of things that we have talked about in the past that I'd also then like to come back to. Things that you do in the broking business. And we're going to have to step back in a moment and give a bit of a background. We will do that. But the zero fee, the verification of the ID in real time, the buyer profile documents that you use. I love this, all different innovations in broking, but then you went one step further. So how about we start at the very beginning? As I can't even remember, what's that song? You start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. No, I'm not going to launch into song. Don't worry, Keiran. I wouldn't do that to anyone.
I was getting all excited to hear you sing, Joe. It's good being here.
I think we've actually got quite a few people on our team who are offshore in the admin and marketing side, and they love karaoke. So I think we actually have got a virtual karaoke session happening tonight. But anyway, that is so unrelated to the topic.
Virtual karaoke sounds fantastic.
Virtual karaoke, here we go. Yeah. Anyway, back to very good place to start. So you started with merchant business brokers. So they started off as business brokers, but you have moved into something a little bit different. Why don't you start off by talking about what the problem was that occurred to you and what you were trying to solve, and then how you went about solving it?
Sure. So I guess if we start right back at the beginning, my business partners, Shane and Ian, between them have been broking for full time for 30 years. And there was a whole bunch of problems that we found that were just clunky and slow in the process, right? So going through the whole buyer qualification steps. So typically if you're selling a business, you get an inquiry and then you send them a confidentiality agreement, and then they sign it or unsign it, and then you get that back, and there's always very little information. And so then you've got to call the buyer to find out, are they a good fit? Because you don't want to necessarily release all your vendor's confidential information without knowing who this actual person is. Are they going to be a good fit for the business? And so that was something that we were spending heaps and heaps of time on. It was really frustrating us. And so we started down this path of, well, how can we smooth this, right? And the first step that most people do is, you go to a DocuSign or something like that to make your NDA process a bit faster. We built some software that would read emails and automatically send out the confidentiality agreements for us straight out of our system, so that even in the middle of the night, that the buyer would have it within a minute. But then I guess one of the real innovations for us was when we decided to build a buyer profile tool. And so this is in business sales, which is our kind of business for sale website, which we're a part of. But it's not just for our brokerage, I should say that. And how it works is when a buyer comes to the site, we ask them a lot more information. So things like, when are you ready to buy a business? How are you going to fund it? What skills and experience do you have? Have you owned a business before or worked in management? And really what we're trying to answer is this buyer going to be a good fit for the business? Yeah, we've put time on that. And what we've found is that when we're getting these buyer profiles back, buyers are actually great because they've been frustrated by the process as well, right? We found this when a buyer inquires, they'll typically inquire on a few businesses and end up having that qualification conversation with multiple brokers. So I think one of my favorite stories about this was a buyer who was an employee. So he would inquire on a business, sign the NDA, and then the broker would call him to go through the standard kind of qualifications questions that everyone does, and 20 minutes, half an hour. So he'd have to walk out because he didn't want his boss to know that he was looking at buying. So he was trying to take these calls on his lunch breaks. I spent like 2 hours on the phone just to find out that these businesses weren't even suitable because they didn't quite, because obviously the ads are written in a confidential way. And so solving that problem for buyers was actually something that we were quite proud of as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you started off with the problem that it was taking you such a long time to qualify these buyers. You found a way to automate it through this system. But then you found that the side effect of this was that actually it was creating a better process, not just for you, but also in terms of the efficiency that it was able to create, but also for the buyer experience. And then how did that help at the end of the day? Does that mean that, buyers preferred to come to you guys, or I guess this sort of has fed in to the platform that you now have that brokers use? Is that right?
Yeah, so it's part of the business sales platform, and so those profiles that a buyer fills out exist for any broker. So if the broker's on business sales and they inquire, the broker gets to see that profile. So the buyer only has to do it once, and any broker on the platform gets access to that when they inquire. So it's a massive time saving for the buyer, but it's also a massive time saving for the broker because you're not having to have these. When you go to your vendor and you go, hey, I've got a signed confidentiality here. It's from Joe Blow, but we know that he's worked in the same industry before. He's been in management for 5 years. He's got cash and he's got equity in his house, and he's ready to go now. And so all of that information is telling you that this is a higher quality buyer than someone who just submits and says, "Oh, I don't have any money. I've never worked in management before. I've never owned a business, but I'm ready to go." Like, well,
yeah, I'd like to give it a crack. Yeah. I think I want to buy a business today.
And $10 million listing, no money, that's fine. Yeah, it kind of tells you a bit more about the buyer and saves you a bit of time with the tire kickers there.
Great. Okay. I love it. I love that innovation. So what else? What are the other pain points that you had come up against and were trying to solve?
Yeah, the next step in this was for us to think about, when you get an NDA, how do you know that, the person who has the name on the NDA is actually the correct name, right? How do we know that this is a real person? They didn't just, sign it off, John Smith.
Joe Blogs.
Exactly, right? The poor guy called John Smith who always gets told you're not a real person. So what we did there was, the first kind of step is, okay, can you send us a copy of your ID? But obviously with data breaches and whatnot, we didn't really want to be responsible for storing ID on our files, right? Just slapping it in Dropbox isn't really secure. So that's something that we wanted to avoid. And we wanted to make sure, and of course, if it's a scan, you can't even check whether it's the holograms and all of this work. So what we did was we integrated our platform directly into the government databases. So, when you use a bank website and you can put in your driver's license number and the card number and the expiry, and then and then they go, yep, you're a real person.
Yeah.
We do that. It means that we check the records against the government register. So even if someone shows you a bit of plastic, we're checking that those numbers are actually correct and it's all a legitimate person. It also means we don't have to store the driver's license, which comes with all these onerous IT provisions, because all we get back, we get a code back from essentially in New South Wales, it's Service New South Wales, that says, yes, this is real and we've, time-stamped it, done, perfect. And that code doesn't actually hold any personally identifiable information. So when Optus got hacked and they'd stored all this stuff in their database, we just store the verification code to prove that we did it. And so it's much more secure.
It's, and isn't that the topic on the minds of everyone at the moment? Are my systems robust enough, and what information am I holding might get hacked into? Because some huge examples around at the moment. So I love it, this verification process, rather than you holding the information. You use this third-party supplier. And all you need is the verification number to show you've run that process.
And it's great. We can verify, so not just driver's license, passports, Medicare cards, they're fairly easy. We can also do visas. So often, particularly, there's like the Section 188, I think is it the 888, a visa that's a business innovation visa. So what that means is people who are non-citizens can come in, they might not have a driver's license, but we can verify them by their visa number. And my personal favourite is that our good friends in New Zealand can come into Australia without a visa. So we actually integrate to the New Zealand passport office as well. So basically, if you're physically in the country, there should be something we can verify.
Brilliant.
Make sure that we've got real people. I'm quite proud of that.
I love it.
You can tell my nerdiness is coming out now.
I do recall from past discussions, like you love a bit of a process. I love a bit of a process too. Absolutely, 100%. Okay, fabulous. So what else? What were some of the other problems that you'd seen and wanted to solve?
So the other, big one was when we're dealing with vendors. Often, selling business takes some time, right? By the time you prepare the IM, you get last year's financials, and then you get the IM, you get it listed, you deal with the buyers, and then all of a sudden you get down to contracts and they go, oh, can I have the last 3 months financials, please? It was always just really time consuming because you'd email the accountant and then the accountant would never get back to you. And so you'd email them again and again. Ends up taking like a week and a half just to get financials. It was really frustrating. So we just built a zero integration. So what that means is the vendor authorizes you as view-only access through the platform, and then all of the financials stay at 1 a.m. every morning. We update those, and so you've always got up-to-date financials straight out of Xero available. So if a buyer asks you, how the business is trending, you've actually got that information right there at your fingertips, so that sales are still where they're at, and all of that, without having to chase up the accountant and then chase up the vendor to chase up the accountant and then chase up the accountant again. All of that kind of running around is just gone. So it's a massive time saving through that, through the actual sales process.
Wow. And how do sellers deal with the risk that there's some sort of error in the information that's going into the accounts? Because I guess if it's real-time feeds, then there's not that sort of end of quarter checking process or end of month checking process that would usually be done on accounts to make sure they're all correct. So
we'd always recommend that you don't use, yesterday's accounts. So even though we have them, we'll separate out for end of month for you. And then, it does mean we can also see the reconciled date. So you can make sure that the transactions are reconciled. But you're right, that is one of the downsides, that you do need to just have a look at those financials, make it really clear that, we're providing interim figures. And obviously they won't have depreciation in the accounts. They won't have, most of those end of year adjustments won't be done. So it is something that, as a professional, as a broker, you do need to be across. And so
whack disclaimers all over.
Exactly right. These are, and so this is a good plug for someone I know who's a good lawyer, to make sure that you put some disclaimers around any financials that you provide. Obviously, they're coming directly from the vendor.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, wonderful. Well, that is just a brilliant list of innovations there. And I guess the innovation itself, from moving from being business brokers to moving to a platform where you are a service provider to business brokers. That's an innovation in itself. Maybe just talk us through why, and what the reason for that, and what that looks like now in terms of the platform.
Yeah, I guess it all comes back to, sitting around our lunchroom table going, there's got to be a better way to solve this, right? And then
to solve which bits?
To solve all of it, right? Like the whole chain. We were looking at, how there's, so like the processes are so clunky in our office. And then once we started down the path of we could build these tools, but they're like, to be honest, they're enormously expensive. And that's with me who knows how to program. Like we still have professional developers we have to get involved. Full-time guys running these things. Like these are enormously expensive to build these kinds of tools. And so, yeah, we kind of looked at it and thought this is something that we wanted to do for ourselves, but also that we wanted to do for the industry. Ian and Shane, well, Ian obviously is the former president of the AIBB. Shane's been broking almost full time. He's almost up to 20 years. And really, we wanted to have something that was built by us for other brokers to go, we understand the problems that are unique to brokerage, right? These tools don't apply to real estate agents or anything like that. They're specific to the profession of selling businesses. And so we were actually kind of excited to be able to build something specifically for that, which, in our view, has been a bit underserved. So.
Love it. Okay, so essentially what you're saying is the innovation then was in your own business as business brokers, you saw all these issues and had ideas of solutions, but the solutions were expensive, time-consuming and hard to come up with. And so you went, well, hold on, if we're coming up with these solutions for our brokerage, maybe this is useful for a broader breadth of brokerages as well, which led you down this path of a whole new business. And just give us a little quick overview of what the business is and what the business does. Obviously, the business has tools that we've talked about, the zero fee, the ID verification, the buyer profile component, and how does it work?
Business sales is our, is a platform for people who want to buy and sell businesses. So we like to say that we enable transitions. So we're all about helping a buyer get started, right? If you're sitting there thinking, dreaming about owning a business, I guess we've got all the tools to kind of move you through the process from dream to done. How do you go from, yes, I want to look for a business, you find a business. So brokers can post businesses there. It's completely free to list and sell. There's no fees or anything. You can pay to beat the top of the search results, but it's free for brokers to list businesses. And then all of the workflow tools that we've been talking about sit underneath that to make the whole process of selling a business smooth, streamlined, and from the buyer side as well. One of the other things that we do differently, which we haven't spoken about, is categorization has always been a bit of an issue. So we integrate directly with the ATO's business classification system. Mm-hmm. For a buyer, that gives them a bit more confidence about exactly what they're looking at. It makes it easier to find businesses because there's more categories to put them in. But yeah, that's something else that was a bugbear of ours when we'd come across businesses and you could never find the right category for them. And so we always went, okay, well, and look, ANZIC has 830 odd different business categories. So it's a lot more. They're tiered, and I could really nerd out on how it makes search dynamics a lot better. But then I think I'd put everyone to sleep and you'd have to do some virtual karaoke to wake them back up again.
I'm standing by with a microphone. No, I'm not going to sing. My goodness. It's so good. Okay. And quick question, what's in the development pipeline at the moment?
Oh, so much. So the next step is something that we're working on is value calculator, right? So it's not going to be a valuation tool. Obviously I'm a registered business valuer, and so I completely understand that there's, it's a profession for a reason. But we think that we can use the data that we've got, integration with zero fee to help price businesses and give that tool out. It'll be free again. And so it will look at the comparable sales information that we have, and it'll look at the business that's coming in, and it will adjust for things like the location, the quality of the lease, how many of the customers are recurring, and things like this. And it will help brokers and business owners and accountants think about what the business is worth in a bit more of a structured way, and it'll give you a ballpark range that we think is going to be pretty close to accurate. That's the big next project. We've also got a few more that are a bit further away, so I'll keep those ones under my hat and then tell you about them when we've got them sorted.
Love it. Okay, I love it. Well, I love, as anyone who knows me knows, I love anything to do with innovation. I love the way that you've taken these problems and found creative solutions, really creative solutions. I love it. And clever and creative solutions. So look, huge thank you for coming onto the podcast, Keiran. How can our listeners get in contact with you? And who do you want to get in contact with you? Who should be getting into contact with you, and how do they do it?
If you're thinking about, or if you're a broker, you sell businesses full-time, you should definitely have a chat about how you can work with business sales. Easiest place to contact me is keiran@businesssales.com.au or on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn, so you can always get me there, or keiran@businesssales.com.au.
Fabulous, Keiran. Thank you so much. And of course, we will link right through to Keiran and businesssales.com.au in our show notes. If you are running along the beach at the moment, yay to you running along the beach, or on your commute in the way to work or home again, because we commute now that this whole COVID thing's gone. Anyway, if you can't write it down, we've got it in the show notes. Fabulous. Wonderful, Keiran. I just wanted to say a huge thank you for coming onto the podcast today.
No worries. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Deal Room podcast. We hope you're now primed for your next deal with these pointers and have enjoyed these fascinating insights. Now, if you'd like more information about this topic, then head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com, where you'll be able to download a transcript of this episode, as well as access any contact details and any other additional information we referred to in today's podcast. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with our guests today and the services they offer, you can go ahead and check out our show notes for a link right through to them and their details. You can also book in directly with our legal eagles at Aspect Legal if you'd like to soundboard your next steps, discuss a legal question, or find out more how we can assist, whether that's with buying or selling a business, or perhaps somewhere in between. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the Deal Room podcast on your favorite podcast player to get notifications whenever a new episode is out. We'd also love to hear your feedback, so please leave us a review and rating if you're already one of our subscribers, or even if you're listening to this podcast for the very first time. Every review helps our team produce valuable content for you. Well, thanks again for listening in. You've been listening to Joanna Oakey and the Deal Room podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time. I am so very excited to announce that I've hit a non-podcast related milestone and released a book. You might wonder why? Simple. I wanted to help business owners understand the mechanics of deal making and the interaction between three critical phases of business: acquisition, growth, and exit. And so I am very happy to announce Buy, Grow, Exit, a guidebook for business owners and their advisors on how to buy, grow, and guess what? Exit in a way that maximizes value and avoids landmines along the way. The book is available now, so just head over to buygrowexit.com.au to get your copy and to access a whole heap of free resources that will really help you on your journey of acquisition, growth, and exit in your business or in working with your clients. Also, check out our show notes where we will link straight through to that page.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Thanks for listening to the Deal Room podcast. To find out more about this episode and other episodes in the series, check out the show notes or head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com.au.